I can clearly see that you are trying hard, it's true, but your sense of self-esteem is unformed yet, just a little bit more to go. But once it's formed, you will start breathing happiness, life will become easier for you, you will feel strength. You should never keep yourself in a state of humiliation or pride or depression or fuss. This is the destruction of your life. You need to try to live in a way that everything is fine, that your psyche works properly. You shouldn't put yourself in such a position, because people around you will also change for the worse because of this.
Can I suggest in a certain way that we should go to a priest, for example, to talk to him?
If he believes.
He says he believes, but it's just an illusion.
Then look, there's a sequence. If he says he believes, there are lectures. You can find them on the online resource Good People Club. Father Ambrose, an Orthodox priest, is giving lectures there. He is from the Russian Orthodox Church, but he lives in Ukraine. He gives very good and kind lectures. You can listen to him together, or he can do it alone. Everything starts with a lecture. If you take him straight to a priest, it will just scare him off. He won't go. It's stressful for a person, especially for a man. For a man to go somewhere, he needs to understand why he should do it. And just out of fear of losing his wife, that's not an option. Go this way. Give him the opportunity to listen to lectures. The most important thing you need to understand is that your problem is a lack of a relationship. You can go to a priest or somewhere else, but relationships begin when they are equalized. That means you don't depend on the person, you depend on God. Immediately your sense of self-worth comes into its place, and then he can no longer be insolent, because one can only be insolent with a dependent person. But if you don't depend on him, you're happy in life without him anyway. Then you set conditions, and they have to be enforceable. The first condition, come on, start listening to lectures. Which ones do you like? Choose these, and these. It's not necessary to listen about the harm of drinking, but just some lectures about how to live correctly. Maybe it's even better to listen to an Orthodox person, because that's his faith. Start with this. Start with developing the person. But you shouldn't even start with development, but with establishing the right relationship so that he begins to respect you. If you're humiliated, you won't be respected.
It's very difficult.
It's very difficult, I agree, but it's necessary. This is the first step to overcome your fate. Put all your effort into it. Otherwise, nothing will work out. You are dependent on him. But you need to depend on God. You should be a self-sufficient person. You will succeed. I'm sure you are a serious person.
I want to change my field of work. Bless me.
I don't know for what. For what, my dear? Bless me, Dr. Torsunov, for something. Go ahead and tell me what it's for. I don't know what you want to do. Maybe you want to join ISIL. How would I know?
It's about psychology.
That suits you well. What do you do now? You're a teacher, right? Well, that's the same thing. There's no change. You were a teacher and you remain one. Be happy. Sir, raise your hand so that the woman with the microphone can see you. Yes, you. Raise your hand. Look, lady, you're going the wrong way. The person is over here.
Thank you very much. Your lectures are very supportive and helpful in life. They really change a lot.
I can't pull this flower out. Give me that white one over there. I'll give it to you, that white one. Try to pull it. No? Then some other roses. There are roses there. Look, over there. Take it. Let's not start with the fact that you're trying to develop yourself, but with what your wife feels and why she feels it. Let's start with how many years you've been living together. Okay, now let's see. It seems to me you've been living together for about 6.5 years. Aha, you've been living with her for that long. And when you got married, after a year or a year and a half, it seems to me you started cheating on her. Isn't that right?
I didn't cheat.
You didn't cheat, so you wanted to. And you looked at women, communicated with them. And that's what led to her having painful feelings towards you. A painful feeling of not knowing where you're going and what you're doing. Let's start with this. And spiritual practice has nothing to do with it, because you are naturally an independent person. You went somewhere and didn't tell her, so she got nervous and stressed about it. In other words, you don't have a relationship. You need to understand how a woman is built. She thinks that a man is her property. When she gets married, she perceives the man as her property. And imagine, my property, my hand went somewhere. Hey, stop, where are you going? Or if it suddenly slaps my face, I'll try to stop it. I'll be afraid of my own hand afterwards, really, because it's mine, but it does whatever it wants. And thank God I can feel your wife. Otherwise, I would think after your question, damn, she's a demon. She does not let you go to God. It's not like that at all. Your wife is faithful, decent, punctual, strict, and a serious businesslike woman. And in this situation, she is suddenly surprised. Where's my man? She likes everything to be defined and clear in life. And then suddenly, where's my man? The The man comes in and says, "I was praying." With whom? Immediately the next question from the woman arises. With whom? If a man doesn't say anything and leaves, then it means he might have gone to someone. Who knows, all sorts of thoughts arise in a woman's head. She's human after all. Naturally, she's afraid for her husband, so you should stop being so independent. You should just understand her nature and just ask her permission. Of course, she's taking revenge on you now. She doesn't want you to go anywhere without her at all. This is her principle just because she was offended by you back then. But she's still a normal person. If you kindly ask her permission, she will definitely gradually calm down and start letting you go. Because I don't see that she is against spiritual practice. So what do you think? There might be a reason for this too. For example, if you start blowing smoke in her face. Imagine after you visited my lecture, you come home and say, "That's it, we'll get up at 6 a.m., go on a morning jogs, repeat, 'I wish happiness to everyone,' listen spiritual music, put icons and all that. We'll put an altar at home." The man would be very surprised. "Have you lost your mind or what?" He will be completely shocked. So it all depends on your behavior. If you scared her with something in your behavior, then it's understandable that she will think this way. You can't just suddenly stress a person like that. My opinion is that you have a very good and decent wife. I think that you are overheated and you lack strength because of this. You need to do water fasting and prolonged continuous movement because you have excess weight and you're overheating. That means you need to accumulate strength. So if you can't pray long enough and can't work on yourself, the reason is your health. Some say lack of willpower. It's not about willpower. If a person is overheated, imagine, for example, you have a fever and it's knocking you down. You just can't do anything. Is it a lack of willpower? You understand that you have a fever. And there's a temperature that doesn't create a fever because it's not in the body, it's in the psyche. Your psyche is overheated. You can feel this at night when you're sleeping, that you're hot. You kick your blanket off. You may feel that you always want something cold, cold water, and so on. That's how you can understand this. And only water fasting can help you. And since you also have excess weight, you need to move for long periods, and maybe also go to a swimming pool. This will help you a lot. That means you should take up swimming. There will be movement and water at the same time, which will cool you down.
Can I ask one more question?
Go ahead. I can't hear you well. You need to speak louder. I can't hear you. You need to bring the microphone closer because I can hear some of the words and some of the words I can't.
I work in a blue-collar job. What further development is suitable for me?
Let's solve this issue now. Let's look at your connections. Your horizontal connections are very weak. That means you don't have friends in your activities. Speaking about vertical connections, you basically respect your parents, but it doesn't go beyond that. That means you don't show your initiative with elders in relationships either. So the upward attraction is also very weak. You respect younger ones, that means they love you. So it turns out that horizontal connections are weak, vertical connections are weak, only connections with younger ones are good. Therefore, the only thing you can advance in is to have some subordinates who would listen to you, but everything else is constrained. This is the topic of yesterday's lecture, so there is no social development because you don't have sufficiently high communication skills in relationships with people. That means you need to learn to love people. You are afraid and wary of them. That means you should love people and learn to understand them. And then there will be social development, which will lead to an increase in your status in society.
Thank you very much.
You see, it's good that we have questions from yesterday's lecture as well. There's a man in the back. Let's ask some men, because men are people too.
Thank you.
Be happy. You need to speak a bit louder. It's very difficult for me to hear like this.
My first question is about work. I participated in a project and we have buildings and structures left. I don't know what to do with them.
I know what to do with them. You need to expand your relationships with elders beyond one city and make some project that will be financed from another city, but with your own goals. That means these buildings will be used for the purposes of an organization. Well, according to your fate, what I'm saying might work out. An organization that is interested in them not within your city, but beyond it. Maybe there will be internet work or something else, I don't know. But I know for sure that this can only be implemented outside of your city, so you need to go beyond your city and create some concepts. Roughly, what concepts can there be in using these buildings for business purposes, in your opinion? Are these apartment buildings or what?
No, they are industrial premises.
Great, just great. What are the options? I'll tell you right away what will work.
Production of herbal flower.
Herbal flower?
Yes.
No, that won't work next.
Metal structures.
That will work, but I think we can find an even better option. I feel there's a need for an area. What cities are nearby? Samara? There's a very strong connection with Samara. Samara is just great. You should try something related to government contracts. Try to look in that direction. You will have success there, and it's some kind of production that is in demand across the country. Just take the statistics. Look at what the country lacks, and you'll hit the bullseye. You just offer the premises, they immediately start using them, and that's it. Think in this direction. Your bad fate is ending. Your main problem is despair. In despair, you lose your mind and lose the ability to understand what to do. You blame the city for being small, for not being able to do anything there. That means you think in terms of defeat, not development. The category of development is when you believe that you will succeed, and faith always comes from God. And what you lack in your fate is taking a step that would be bigger than your current inner experience, because you have much more opportunities than you think. You just lack this faith and the right attitude. Moreover, for a long time, about 3-4 months ago, you fell into a serious depression and got completely lost. You can't live like that. This depression led to liver dysfunction, your kidneys were affected there, and so on. You see, you've extinguished yourself as a person. And all this is just your illusion, because this project is feasible. I can clearly see how these buildings are launched in 7-8 months, and how they are launched not from this city, but apparently from Samara. That means all this is possible if you change your perception of life. When people don't believe in something, they destroy their lives. I'll give an example. It's a Vedic example, and it's true. A small elephant calf is caught in the prairies and put on a very heavy chain, and it tries to get free from this chain for about 2 months so hard that its leg is bleeding. Then gradually, after about 2 months, it begins to understand that it won't break free from it. Imagine it's a miracle that when it grows into a big elephant, they gradually weaken this chain, and then they just keep it on a rope. An elephant can break a rope like a thread, but it still doesn't do it. That's how consciousness works. And you are now set up like this. You're sitting on this thread thinking you're on a chain. Because at the moment when you tried to achieve this, it was impossible, because you had a period of life in which it was impossible to achieve success. During such periods, one should simply pray and save oneself, but you were furious and ended up in a depression. That means that you exhausted yourself as a person and became drained, and now you're not ready to enter this rush again. Why? Because you've done wrong. When a person sees that fate is not allowing them to do something, they should just stop. That's what General Kutuzov did when he saw that he couldn't save Moscow. He stepped back a little, waited it out, and then kicked out Napoleon. Or rather, Napoleon ran away on his own. That's it. So just understand how your fate acts. If you think I'm making this up, I can prove that I'm not. For example, looking at your fate, I see that 4 years ago you had successful development, and exactly the same successful development will begin for you in 8 months. You see, you're silent, I'm talking. Now tell me, did I say something wrong? 4 years ago you had a good period. 10 years ago, yes, but you can only have such a period in your life again in about 6 years. Such intensive development as it was back then will not be soon. You need to understand now that not luck, but your efforts will give you opportunities. Yes, it's a dangerous situation for his fate, and there's one problem that led to this. He's of a slightly different nature, not like you. You're a leader by nature, and he's a businessman. These are different natures. Businessmen have a more easygoing nature. They like swindles. They're less serious people, but more sociable. They like building relationships more. Also, they don't always fulfill their obligations. Sometimes they're cunning. You consider this a fallen nature. In fact, being a businessman is good. First, you need to accept this person, your child. Understand that he has a different nature. Not like yours, he's a different person. The first task is to completely forget about what he does, establish a good relationship with him, and start being friends with him. He now understands himself that he's walking into a trap. He understands this, but he can't do anything else, and so he does what he can and is now gradually stepping closer to prison. What can you do? You should become friends with him. You should become a friend. Forget about his activities, don't pay attention, and guide his nature in the right direction, because there are activities that are not related to fraud at all, but are similar to this. Well, for example, some stock trading, maybe not exactly that, but something similar. He's still the kind of person who needs to be involved in some financial operations. It's his nature. But only your kind heart can gently guide him in the right direction at the moment when he will have difficulties, and he will have difficulties soon. A bad period in his activities begins in 9 months. If you become friends with him over these 9 months, then at that moment you can suggest an activity similar to this one, but where there's no danger to his fate. There's no other way out. If you reject him as a person, he won't change anyway. He is who he is, and there's nothing you can do about it. Okay, let's move on. Who else do we have? Ask your question. You see, she has such a strong sense of self-worth. Usually when people get pushy, I don't react. Sit down. You should sit down because when people stand, they can't listen. They can only talk. You see, she has a strong sense of self-worth. It's hard to refuse her. This is called success, the topic of today's lecture. A successful person is a strong person who says, "My name is Alexandra." Alexandra means winner.
Call me Sashenka.
Okay, Sashenka, ask your question.
I've had experience in business. My business was related to children, and my whole life is built around creating conditions for children. At the moment, I'm on maternity leave, and I'm developing spiritually now. But I would like to use my energy in this life specifically for children.
Well, that's right. You have a good fate. Everything is fine. What's your question?
The question is, we're now planning to open a private school. I have a partner, but she's completely...
Listen to me. Your partner is not really your partner. You apparently don't understand people well. This lady won't help you. She has a very fussy and inconsistent mind. A person who does one thing, then another, then a third. What is she supposed to do there?
I'm the organizer, and she's specifically a methodologist and a very rare kind of teacher.
She's a methodologist and a teacher, but she has very unstable thinking. She's a bit adrift, right?
Possibly. Her fate is...
That's right, fate. Don't do anything together with her. You won't be able to open a school. And in general, you can't open a school right now according to your fate. You'll be able to open it in 4 or 5 months. You can prepare for it now, but you can't open, start, or run it now. You don't have the fate for it right now, and you also don't have a person with whom you could work.
My personal desire is to engage in spiritual development, and at the same time I want to give my energy and have some feedback.
First, you need to focus on spiritual development, then open a school, because you won't be able to do both simultaneously.
So, if I understand it right, I need to direct my time now towards developing myself.
That's right, and in the fall you have a good period coming up for development.
So, I need to advertise now and invite people.
Yes, I agree. Unfortunately, I can't agree that this woman will bring you success, forgive me. Unfortunately, you just don't see people clearly, and that's the problem. You need to understand them better, otherwise there won't be success. In 2-3 months, she will have an even more difficult situation in her life. She will be drained.
How should I behave in this situation?
I don't know. If you're a reasonable person, you should verify my words. You should have a serious conversation with her. Try to check somehow. I can't make decisions for you anyway. Let's say you fire her. Who will you hire then? It will be the same thing. You need to understand why I'm saying this. You should talk to her and understand what exactly is wrong with her. Maybe I'm mistaken. I'm not God, really. Figure it out with her. And if you see that I'm right, then think about one thing. Probably it's not the first time in your life when people let you down, right?
Yes.
Right? Why? You should have someone who is a good judge of people's character, or you should learn it yourself. You should put enormous effort into this because there's a hole in your life. You have a lot of strength yourself, you're a capable person, but your helpers often aren't like that.
Then, perhaps, should I direct this towards working with my lineage, to work through it? Is the issue coming from there?
You need to understand that you have to direct your strength towards working on yourself. Your lineage is your fate. Relatives are not the cause of your problems. You got the relatives you deserved. You need to work on your fate, and then the fate of your entire lineage will change as a whole. Prayer. There's only one tool. Wherever a person's memory is attracted to, that's where their fate will go. How does this energy of lineage work? Your fate connects you based on the actions you performed in your past life. Your actions determine your connections. If, using your inner strength, you direct your memory towards God, towards holiness, then these vicious or wrong connections begin to lose their power, and you start to feel in your heart that you're overcoming your fate. This happens through memory. Everything in our life is connected to memory. For example, when you run in nature, your memory connects with nature. You feel the power of nature. You gain the strength to live. When you communicate with good people, you get a feeling of protection, and you gain the strength to live. When you communicate with God, you gain perspectives in life, the ability to overcome difficulties, the strength to live appears. All this is connected with memory. When you are growing cucumbers, you need to tie them to something, and then they grow well and give a good harvest. Otherwise, they just crawl along the ground, then start to rot and cause nothing but trouble. Similarly, a person must tie themselves to something to have a good harvest. A person attaches themselves to something through memory. If you remember God, then God gives you the intelligence to choose your helpers. And if you don't remember, then your fate gives you problems. You can call it the fate of your lineage, whatever you like. Either fate influences you or God influences you. It all depends on your choice. Fate forcibly makes you act as you do, but freedom of choice lies in tying your memory to something that is above fate.
I have a question. I consider myself a person that people come to in their time, and I help them in one way or another. We have a feedback relationship.
Yes, that's right.
This person is now in her state and I can help her. Yes.
Yes, but don't confuse a patient with an employee. If I decided to marry a woman whom I want to help, it's the wrong decision. I should marry a woman who can help me. If I choose a person who is a fortress for me in life, who helps me, then it's the right decision. You can live in the fortress and help everyone else. But if you give your life to help someone, it's the wrong decision. Do you understand what I'm saying? There's a difference between an employee and a patient. These are fundamentally different relationships. When it's a business partner, it's an equal relationship. Husband and wife have an equal relationship too. But a patient is a senior-junior relationship. You hire a leader for your work. A leader can't be junior or a patient. They can only be equal. They can't be senior either, because in that case, everything will fall apart for you.
And if we create such conditions and leave?
What conditions?
For work.
She's a methodologist. She can't manage anything. You need to get a little education on this topic. You're the manager. You can't leave. You can manage yourself. But if you hire a methodologist who can't manage, they can only create a picture and promote educational methods. She can't lead people, command them, punish them, work with authorities.
If possible, one last question. Where should I direct my energy now?
Don't be so categorical. You should always direct your energy towards development, but you also can continue to do your work which you are doing. Don't limit yourself. You are a very active person and you should engage in spiritual practice and develop your activities at the same time. Just develop them right. Educationally, I mean management. If you manage in the educational sphere, that's also good. It suits you.
Thank you.
Now your question.
Dr. Torsunov, thank you for the lecture. To which category does the working class proletariat belong?
What are you referring to, the city or the country?
No, for example, a peasant.
They belong to the fourth category. Let me explain now. If a person is engaged in agricultural trade, they belong to the third category. If they manage a collective farm, they are in the second. An agronomist is in the first category, and a laborer falls into the fourth. There are always four categories in life. Without them, no societal structure is possible at all. If you see any gathering of people, all four categories are present. Otherwise, the system simply won't work. Without these four categories, nothing works in this world. It's like constructors that need to be put together, otherwise nothing will turn on. Next question. Thank you, good question. The man in the front row. By the way, my dears, after the lecture, I will be able to hand out flowers and tangerines, and then probably I'll go home, because tomorrow early in the morning I need to go to Kazan.
Here's the question. How to determine one's nature?
Let's start like this. Is it easy or difficult for you to work in general?
It's normal, easy.
Easy. Do you enjoy working?
Yes.
You like it. So, this suggests we're already moving from the level of hobby to the level of abilities. Now, do you have a sense of where you work better, more effectively?
Not really yet.
You are between the stage of abilities and hobby. Your task is to establish yourself in the activity you pursue, to do it with love, and when you work, to think about where you can work more effectively. You don't need to think about your nature now. You need to think about where you can earn more money and find greater opportunities to work. If you skip this thought process, you will be destroyed by fate. Identify where you are more effective and where it's easier for you to earn money. This is only possible if you love the work overall and feel good at work. In that moment, your intelligence will engage in the realization of where I will excel. Through this awareness, you will gradually become very effective in your activity and start acting in alignment with your abilities. You understand?
Yes, thank you.
Go ahead, good luck. It's impossible to surpass your own limits. It's impossible to go beyond yourself. Now the gentleman further back, in blue. Yes, you. No, not you. Well, okay, you ask. There was another gentleman there. All right, okay.
Dr. Torsunov, thank you very much for coming and for the lectures. Please explain this. You mentioned that, first of all, we need to love our management.
Oh, just not your management. You are an exception.
No, actually, the management in our company is quite good.
Okay, good. You've passed the first test. So what is your question?
Let's say we love the country's leadership, and then we draw strength from it, so to speak.
We will receive from it regardless of our feelings and whether we love it or not. There's nothing you can do about it because that's fate. But there's one thing. There are different layers of life, and these layers of life are influenced by various forces. This is how luck is distributed. There are energy zones, as in the song, "Poor savages live there, ugly in appearance but kind inside. They have no luck in catching crocodiles or growing coconuts." There are zones where people, on the contrary, live very harmoniously and happily. So remember, when a person respects their elders, they enter an energy zone where they won't be easily harmed.
I don't fully understand.
There are two ways to grasp this. The first way is through understanding, and the second way is through practical experience.
It's just a question. Let's say, for example, any person, including myself, loves our leadership. He's not satisfied with it, but he respects it.
Look, listen, you're talking about different things. Love is one thing. You can love your wife or a holy person. Respect means that you accept that this person represents God in your life, and how well he performs depends on your fate. This is called respect, and it gives you a guarantee of protection in your life.
Yes. It's just that, let's say, lower-level managers were in power, and many are not very good representatives. They fall from grace and are put in jail. Then they are criticized on TV. That is, they love their leadership, and they act the same way.
Yes, but it's all good. If a person has been in power, let them sit in jail.
But then, how can we talk about respect?
Respect means that someone was appointed by God to be your superior. Respect for the superior means respect for God. If, let's say, your father is an alcoholic or just a degraded person, but he gave you life, is there something to respect or not?
Well, let's say then, while this person is in power, we respect him. But when he's in prison, do we respect him or not anymore?
We respect him as a person, but we can't respect him as a person in power because he's no longer in power, because those in prison can no longer be in power.
I see, thank you.
You see, there is a position, and we respect the person within that position. It means that we agree with God. There are people who are obedient to God, and there are rebels. If a person is a rebel by nature, if he disagrees with authority and disagrees with God, he will be punished for his rebellion, because God creates the management structure for this whole world. We don't even realize how seriously he creates it. All atoms move according to his plan. The climate on Earth is according to his plan, and so is the management of the entire universe, which includes rulers. They are like cogs in a great mechanism of management that God creates. If we interfere with some of these cogs, it means that we are destroying life itself. Let's say we reverse the rivers. Yeah, cool. Let's see what happens now. It will only get worse. That is, everything in this world is very harmonious and well thought out. We respect our elders and enter this system of harmonious existence. I'm not saying that you should respect those who act immorally. You shouldn't respect them for that. They were put in prison, which means God dealt with them in prison, so to speak. You have to agree with this. It means that whether you respected this person or not, the time came and God punished him. That is, everything is under control. You should understand this. If such people are being imprisoned, then everything is as it should. You respect those in power, which means that you strengthen your homeland and make it invincible. You create more stability in your life than those people who destroy. You strengthen God's will here on Russian land, and as a result, God will strengthen you. He will give you a more stable life so that no one can undermine you just like that, for no good reason. That's what I'm talking about. It's impossible to respect crime. It's impossible to respect betrayal. If a ruler has drunk away the country and divided it into pieces, it's impossible to respect that. But while he rules, if God has put him there, we must respect him. Otherwise, it will be even worse. Because when a person rules and people don't respect him, chaos follows. This country is easy to tear apart and destroy without problems because it has no patriotism, no fighting spirit, no moral strength, no laws, no rules, nothing, just chaos, and that's all. Thank you. This is a complex and important topic that needs to be clarified. Your question next, gentlemen.
Dr. Torsunov, this is my first time attending your lectures. What practical advice can you offer for being content with life? That is, how to focus on today rather than worrying about the future. My issue is that I'm always thinking ahead, about the future.
We talked about this.
What specific actions can be taken?
By you?
In general.
Go outside and do some exercises.
That's clear.
No, it's not clear. Your problem is in switching your mindset. I explained to you that there are two states of mind. There is a state of fear or dependence when self-esteem is afraid of life and rushes forward. It seeks better circumstances and fusses all the time. The second option is to tell yourself enough and go outside despite your desires, which are to watch TV or rush to work, to live in a fuss. There is a behavior pattern. A person breaks this pattern and says, that's it, goes outside and starts doing exercises. In that moment, when he does this, he finds happiness. At first, it's hard to force yourself, then happiness comes. Try it. Similarly, a person, let's say, goes skiing or wishes happiness to others or just prays or asks his wife for forgiveness. It's hard at first, then she hugs you. This is happiness. This is the pathway to happiness. For this, you need to overcome the initial inner reluctance to act. This reluctance is actually called the desire to die. When a person wants to get up late from bed, it reflects a desire to die. When they overeat at night, it indicates a desire to die. When they wait for the tram and don't want to enjoy the day or simply enjoy life, it's a desire to die. But understand, all of this is not enjoyment. It's merely a shift from focusing on oneself to focusing on others. Enjoyment implies an even deeper focus on myself. You asked me about enjoyment. The desire to enjoy leads to vanity. A person should forget about themselves, wish happiness to everyone, love nature, and take care of their spouse. Then they will find happiness. When a person chases happiness, happiness runs away from them. When a person gives happiness away, happiness flows back to them. One should understand a fundamental truth in this world. They will never grasp happiness. One should honestly admit this to themselves and willingly give happiness away. At that moment, they will become happy. For example, can you force yourself to exercise? No. But if you tell yourself, I want to do this for my son, so that he grows to be not a dummy but a good person, then you can do it. Or let's say you realize that you don't even have the strength to communicate normally with your wife, you're angry at her, then you can exercise for her, not for yourself.
I understood everything. What are the practical actions?
The practical actions are very clear for you. Don't drink. To avoid drinking, you need to exercise. This is very practical and straightforward.
I understand you. No further questions.
You see, men often need a knock on the head for things to resonate with them. I apologize for my bluntness. There was no other way to convey this. I had to give you the knowledge that I understand you much better than you might imagine. So, here is the first practical action. You're overheated. Your psyche is overheated. You need to cool down. You need nature. This is the first practical action. Go exercise. The second practical action will come when you fill yourself up and become strong and calm. You need to sort out relationships with your loved ones because there's a lot of tension there. You must accept and forgive. This will be the second practical action related to your abilities for these things. Your third practical action will be when you have calmed down a bit in life and when you feel peaceful because you've sorted things out with your wife, dealt with your bad habits, and figured out your relationship with nature. Or not with your wife, but with your partner, it doesn't matter. What's important is that you've sorted everything out. Then you'll be able to perform effectively at work because you'll have the strength for it. Right now at work, you're just wearing yourself out and exhausting yourself. You don't even have the energy to think about how to live further, which leads to drinking out of fatigue. That's why I'm telling you very practical actions. I'm not stupid. What kind of exercise to do? Decide for yourself. I think swimming would suit you best, for example. The second option is something like wrestling could suit you very well, I think. Something that engages your masculine energy. Do this. It will be very practical for you to break out of the state you're in. I apologize for my harsh tone. I just tried to break through your defenses a bit. All men are like this. It's very difficult for a man to hear others in life. Especially since he's come to a lecture for the first time and doesn't know me. Such a reaction is understandable for a man. Women react differently. Don't worry, I won't eat anyone else. Is it time to finish? There's still one more question. Your question?
Is it possible to have a non-lecture question?
We don't need questions unrelated to the lecture now. We should only ask about the lecture because we're absorbing the material now. The woman in black, raise your hand because I can't see you.
Thank you. In the first lecture, you mentioned that in Ayurveda, the doctor first asked if you want to live at all. You explained what to do if the patient wants to live. But what if the patient doesn't want to live? What should be done with them?
Good question. You see, there's only one reason why a person doesn't want to live. They don't believe that there's love in this life, that there's love and kindness in this world. There's only one reason why a person doesn't want to live. It is because they don't feel that love and kindness. They've become disillusioned with this world. In essence, a person always wants to live. They can't not want to live. They simply don't want to live in this world. This means that they need to be shown that there is kindness in this world. Kindness means the ability to understand a person. Sometimes this understanding can be strict. For instance, I respect and appreciate the man who came to my lecture, but I had to speak harshly to break through his barriers. This is a purely technical approach. My heart is filled with kindness towards him. I know what it took for him to come here. I see all of that. There are all kinds of situations, but in your case, when a person is broken by fate, strictness won't work. You need to speak to them kindly and not push on their desires. Let's say they want to end their life. You shouldn't talk about this at all. It's just their conclusion. Conclusions can change, and they may no longer want to end their life. A person needs to be given love until they calm down in their heart.
Thank you. May I ask one more question on this topic?
Yes.
If life forces a scientist to be a businessman, does that mean that he's not developed? Or is it just a bad period?
A scientist being a businessman? It means he's simply not developed. Sometimes a bad period affects a person and they start acting against their nature. This can happen. It can also mean that he's not developed enough to endure this bad period. I know of such examples. It happens.
In this situation, I feel like I'm a scientist, but life is forcing me to do business.
Yes, that's right.
Does this mean that I will be unsuccessful in this occupation?
Not at all. Did I say that a person who acts according to their abilities is unsuccessful? They are successful. A person who engages at the hobby level and gets things moving is also very successful, and someone who transitions to activity according to their nature is also successful. A successful person is one who goes through the stages of their life. This is another answer to the man's question about what specifically needs to be done. Success means understanding your internal stage and engaging precisely there, not jumping somewhere higher. For example, wanting to immediately fix your work is futile. You need to start from the beginning because you have a trap there.
Can you answer a question about leadership? If a person like Hitler appears in the country's leadership, how should the citizens of this country behave?
Well, this is not our case, believe me, but if we consider such a scenario, there is an answer to this question. The citizens of the country should recognize the signs of such a leader. If a person tells people that everyone needs to be killed and that only we are the best, while all others are useless and need to be destroyed, it indicates his demonic inclinations. This means that very soon the entire country will turn to ashes. It means that it is punished by fate. This means that you need to pack your bags and leave for another country.
So this is an exception to the rules.
This is an exception to the rules. You see, if a ruler is a demon, he wants to destroy everything. He lacks the capacity to love and care for people. It means you need to leave this country. I also want to share another option with you. When a war breaks out in a country and you find yourself in a combat zone, such as Donbass, a person there has no fate. This means that a person could be killed at any moment. Therefore, only two categories of people can be in the combat zone. Those who sacrifice their lives for the motherland, and those who support others who give their lives for the motherland. Everyone else who is not involved should pack their bags and leave this war zone, but not necessarily the country. Because living where there's shooting is unacceptable. It's life-threatening. I know a woman who lived right in a shooting zone. Very religious, she convinced herself. I will pray and no one will harm me. An interesting situation occurred. She prayed, she communicated with God in this way. Once she was praying during a bombing. They were being bombed. It was in Donbass. Her area was being bombed. She was praying in the apartment. At some point, she felt a sudden urge to use the bathroom. She went to the bathroom, but once there, she felt she didn't need to go anymore. Suddenly, the bathroom door blew off. She stepped out to the place where she had been praying, and instead of the room, there was a hole. The room was destroyed by a shell. In other words, the Lord had saved her life and simultaneously made it clear to her that she needed to leave. She packed her bags and left. In my own life, there have been two instances when the Lord demonstrated how He saves my life. I once lived in a house with some electrical issues. It's not the house I live in now, the previous one. It was a new house. There were certain problems with wires, with electricity. There was an interesting moment. I returned from a trip. I had just arrived and I needed to rest. After traveling extensively, I usually recover for at least 8, 9, 10 hours. I need to sleep. No adherence to the daily routine, according to Dr. Torsunov. Just sleep, and that's it. The first day after the trip is recovery time. Imagine, I'm sleeping. I slept for about 4 or 5 hours. I really wanted to sleep, but in my heart, I heard a voice of conscience. Hey, you, listen, get up. You teach people about a healthy lifestyle. It's 4:30 in the morning. Get up, go pray, go rinse yourself, and then pray. I lay there thinking, I want to sleep, I want to rest. This is an exception after my trip. My conscience fought with me for about 15 minutes, and then a firm cry came out. Get up immediately. I got up, went to rinse myself, and there, in the bathroom, right where the heating and other appliances were, there was a fire. Can you imagine? Everything was burning. If I had waited a little longer, the washing machine would have caught fire, along with the doors, and that would have been it, the end. It would have been impossible to stop the fire. The Lord revealed 2 tasks, how He saves my fate, and that I should give people certain knowledge. So I opened the bathroom door, and there was smoke. Behind it was another door where flames raged. I closed the door, grabbed a bucket of water, filled my lungs with air, and extinguished those wires that could still be quickly extinguished, because the flames were only in the wires. They were just burning. Everything else was not yet engulfed. I put out this fire with 1 bucket. Heavy smoke started to go up, and I passed through, thinking in my heart, do you know how people die in a fire? Do you think it's from the flames? Such a thought. I'm a scientist by nature. I answered in my thoughts, I don't know. And suddenly, unexpectedly, I didn't want to. I took a small breath. I inhaled this acrid, strong smoke. I only made a light, small breath. There was strong smoke from the fire. Nothing could be seen because of it. I jumped out of the bathroom. At that moment, I felt that I couldn't breathe. My breathing was completely blocked. I rushed outside and struggled to catch my breath for a minute. Then I started breathing again. Now I know how people die. They don't die from burning. They die because the smoke blocks their respiratory center. The second incident was this. I put corn on the stove to boil, with a plastic thermos nearby at a sufficient distance. It shouldn't have caught fire. At that moment, however, in our village, some drunk worker responsible for gas mishandled the gas, causing a sharp flash and significantly increasing the pressure in the gas pipeline. The gas flared up. Many people said that the same thing happened to them, but I was praying in the next room at this time, and the thermos caught fire. It began melting and gradually flowing down, creating an amazing stream of burning plastic. I'm praying, reading prayers, and a voice in my heart says, go, see if the corn is cooked. I think, no, it's not cooked yet, it's too early, I know for sure it's not cooked. But the voice insists, go, check. I say, I want to read the prayer. No, you can't read the prayer, you're a restless person. You need to constantly go and check on the corn. You're a sinner. I think, no, I want to read the prayer. I'm not a sinner. I can. An internal battle ensued in me, and, like a zombie, I walked to see if the corn was cooked. Seriously, the kitchen cabinet had already started to burn. This is called protection or luck. It occurs during prayer. When a person lives righteously, the Lord gives them the opportunity to overcome fate and avoid dangers in life.